For section 2.4, writing linear functions, I am going to divide it up over 2 days. The first day is going to be slope-intercept form, finding the slope from 2 points, and point-slope form. And then the next day will be a lesson on point-slope form. So for example 1 here, writing the slope-intercept form of the equation of a line, we want to figure out what the equation is in slope-intercept form from this graph. So slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b. M is our slope, and b is our y-intercept. So it's pretty easy to figure out the y-intercept, look at from a graph, because you just look where does it cross the y-axis at, and it crosses at +4. So what that tells us is that b is going to be a +4. So I know that much already. Then I go back to the graph and find another point. So I'm not going to pick here because that's not crossing at an exact point and I would have to estimate, and we don't want to do that. We want to try for the most exact precise point that we can. So I'm going to use this one here. So to get from the 4 up to that next point that I just drew, I'm going to go up and then I have to go over. So I'm going up 2 and I'm going to the right 1. So if you remember, we talked about rise over run. And rise is up or down. And if you go up, it's positive. So in this case, I went up 2, so that's going to be a +2. And then the run is to the right 1. And if I go right, that's positive as well. If I went to the left, that 1 would have to be negative. So I end up with 2 over 1, which then simplifies down to 2. So my slope is 2. So the m value I can replace with a 2. And then the x and the y are points from are ordered pairs from other points that are on that line. So we're going to leave the y and the x, and that is our equation for that line. Then we're going to review the slope formula, which is from 2 ordered pairs. You would have x1, y1. That would be your first ordered pair given. And then your second ordered pair would be x2, y2. So you're going to take y2 minus y1 on the top. And then at the bottom, you're going to take the x from the second point minus the x from the first point and simplify that down. And that will give you your slope, which is also your rise over run. So for example 2, they give us 2 points and want us to find the slope. So I'm going to leave the slope formula up there in the corner so you can look at that. At the top, we want y from our second point. So this would be point number 1. This would be point number 2. And it doesn't matter which one you pick for number 1 and which one you pick for number 2. You will get the same answer. So y out of the second point is 2 minus y out of the first point is -2. And then x from my second point is -1 minus x from my first point is a 3. So then I'm going to simplify that. At the top, minus a negative is really a plus. And then we have the -1 minus 3. So we have 4 at the top and we have -4 at the bottom. 4 over -4 would simplify down to -1. So the slope of the line that passes through those 2 points is -1. Then they're going to give you a table. And you have to find the slope of the line of these 4 points. Now to find the slope, we only need 2 points. So 2 of the points on this table are useless. We don't need to use them. So I always suggest picking and working with the smaller positive points. So I'm going to look at the first 2. And we are going to do y out of the second point. So I'm looking at these. So this would be number 1. This would be number 2. So y out of the second is 6 minus y out of the first is 1. At the bottom, we'd have x from our second is 5 minus x from our first is 2. Simplify down, 6 minus 1 is 5. 5 minus 2 is 3. And we can leave our slope as an improper fraction because remember that's our rise over run, and we want to be able to quickly find what the rise over run is in our equations. And then C, from a graph, we have to find the slope. So we're going to pick 2 points. I'm going to pick this point here and this point here. So remember, we have rise over run, and from the bottom point up to the top point is going to be 6. So up 6 is positive 6, and then the run is from left to right. And I'm not going left or right, I'm staying the same, so I didn't move anything, so the bottom number is going to be a 0. And we can't take 6 and divide it by 0, or in other words, take 6 things and put them in 0 groups. That's just not something that's possible. So the slope of a vertical line is undefined. If it were a horizontal line, the slope is just going to be 0 because we don't have a rise or run. The top number would be 0, the bottom number would be something else. So we would get an answer of 0 for a horizontal line, but a vertical line is undefined. All right. Point slope form here. We are going to look at plugging in numbers and having this formula to work with. Now, this formula can be changed pretty quickly into slope-intercept form, which is the mx plus b that we've been working with. So here is the formula. You definitely want to write that down. The slope is m, just like in mx plus b. And then the point, an ordered pair that we pick, would be the x1 and the y1. So notice it's called point slope form. It's because we can write this form given a point and a slope. So example 3 says in slope intercept form, write an equation of the line that contains points in the table. So we're going to have to figure out what the slope is. We already have a point. We have 4 different ones to choose from. So we can plug all of that into this formula, and then we can rearrange it so that it's in slope intercept form, that mx plus b. So I know that's probably kind of confusing. So step number 1, we'll just go through the steps here and simplify that down for you. So number 1, we have to find the slope. So I am going to use this point and I'm going to use this point just because they are whole numbers. So y from my second point is 0 minus y from my first point is 1 over x from my second point is 3 minus x from my first is negative 1. So 0 minus 1 is negative 1. And at the bottom, I have 3 minus a negative 1, which is really 3 plus 1. So that would be a 4. So I already know what my m value is. And then step 2 is to pick a point. So we have 4 to choose from out of this table. I'm going to pick 3, 0 because they're positive and they're whole numbers. So step 3 is plug that information in. So our formula is y minus y1. And over here, I told you guys that the ordered pair is the x1 and the y1. So we are going to have y minus y1 would be that 0 from that ordered pair I picked, equals m. We found out our slope was negative 1/4, parenthesis x minus whatever our x value is, which is 3. So there's our point slope form. Now the question said write it in slope intercept form. So what we're going to do is simplify this. We are going to distribute the negative 1/4. So this will be our step 4, is to simplify and put it in mx plus b form. So I'm still going to have that y minus 0. Negative 1/4 times x is going to be negative 1/4 x. And then I have to do negative 1/4 times negative 3. So I'm going to write that as 2 fractions. A negative times a negative is going to be a positive, so plus 3. And at the bottom, we have 4 times 1, so that would be 4. Then we have one more step. We have to get rid of this 0 over here. So I'm going to show this step because you're going to have to do it. But in this case, it's 0, so you really don't have to in this particular problem. But if it were y minus 1, we're going to have to add 1 to both sides. So I'm just going to show the work out so you can see what it would look like. So this side is y, this side is negative 1/4 x, and 3/4 plus 0 is just going to stay 3/4. And there's our answer in the mx plus b slope-intercept form. Okay. So example 4, again, write it in slope-intercept form, but they're giving us a point and they're giving us a slope. So we are going to start with that point-slope form. So y minus y1, which is y from our point, would be 3, equals m, which is negative 5. And then x minus x from our point is 1. And then because it has to go in slope-intercept form, we have to distribute the slope. So negative 5 times x is negative 5x, and negative 5 times a negative 1 is a positive 5. And then over here we have y minus 3. And for our last step, we would have to add 3. So we would have y equals negative 5x, and 5 plus 3 would be 8. So there's our slope-intercept form. And then for our last example here, write the equation in point-slope form for the given points. So point-slope, I have a point, I have 2 to choose from, but I don't have the slope. But I do know the slope formula, so we are going to use that first. So y out of the second point would be 5, minus y out of the first is negative 3. X out of the second is 2, minus x out of the first is negative 2. So really that turns into 5 plus 3, so that would be 8. And at the bottom really would be 2 plus 2, and that would be 4. 8 divided by 4 is 2. So our point-slope form looks like that. Now we're going to plug in what we know. We just figured out the slope was 2. And then we can pick whatever point we want. I'm going to pick this first one because I want to show you what negatives are going to do in this form. So we have y minus y1. Well, y out of that point is negative 3. So we would really have minus a negative 3. And then x minus x from the first point is negative 2. So we have to go through and simplify that. We have to write their pluses. That minus a negative turns into a plus. And then we have our equation in point-slope form, and that's what the directions said to do.